Good afternoon, everybody. The next sort of tenet, I would call it, of engagement with the faith community is the idea of environmental justice. This picture is a picture from New Orleans, Louisiana. It's right after Hurricane Katrina, and you can see that this is a flooded area, and this is a church that got completely decimated by Hurricane Katrina. Now this is a Christian, this is out of the New Testament of the Christian Bible, and I know that in your readings you've looked at some of the things that Mary Evelyn Tucker has put together, which gives you a greater context beyond just the Judeo-Christian realm of some of the tenets, the religious, scriptures and tenets, and why religions would care about this. I'm choosing these two in general because they have a lot of resonance throughout the United States, which is the audience that I mostly work with. And the idea of justice does perpetrate itself beyond just the Christian realm. I pulled this scripture passage out because it's one that the community uses a lot in the Christian context, and it's about how you treat other people. And this is, truly I tell you, just as you did not to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And you've heard this phrase a different way, perhaps, where, truly if you do it to the least of these, you do it to me. But this also has to do with what you don't do. So what you do and don't do is very important from a scriptural Christian perspective, and how you treat other people in either what you refuse to do or what you do to them is very important. And it's the underpinning that talks about justice, and that's when some of the Christian communities and also the Jewish communities, when they interact and try to work on environmental issues, they're doing it from the social justice, the justice aspect of it. This is a picture, in Chalmette, Louisiana, which is a little bit southeast, I believe, of New Orleans. For those of you that might recall, after Hurricane Katrina, there was an oil spill in Chalmette, Louisiana. And if you look at this, I want you to remember this picture, but in this you'll see there's big X's. This was an entire neighborhood that was X'd out and evacuated because the oil got up between 5 and 8 feet, water contaminated with oil, within each of these houses. It flooded them out and then completely contaminated them. And the reason why I put this slide up, the National Council of Churches, when I was there, we did some work on this issue, and so did some of the other entities and organizations within the faith community. If you click to the next slide, you'll see, so remember this house, and I'm taking this picture from a car. The picture you just saw of the house is on the left-hand side. This picture of the refinery is on the right-hand side. It's a fence, they call this a fence line community. It was middle class, and it was probably one of the closest fence line communities that I've ever seen, and some other environmental justice folks have said the same thing. So the spill came right from basically right next door. So one of the things that the faith community does is really highlights the environmental justices that are happening and really calls for things to be rectified and changed. The other thing we try to do is, after a disaster comes through, is really try to think through how can we make it better, how can we improve the situation. So this is a picture, again, post-Katrina. This is a Baptist church, African American Baptist church. You'll see the cross is bent on the steeple there, and they had significant damage to their roof, and they were trying to figure out ways to rebuild. We met with the pastor of this congregation and with some of the other African American congregations in New Orleans to figure out, as they rebuilt, how could they rebuild their congregation in a more sustainable way, not just from an energy efficiency manner in terms of like having better windows and better lighting and better HVAC systems, but how could they also look at their community in a more sustainable community manner. So in other words, how can they help put in housing in the neighborhood? How can they help with job revitalization? And how can they do that within the context of environmental sustainability and stewardship? This is going to the total opposite part of the United States. This is a picture of a woman from the Gwich'in tribe. Historically, the faith community has done a lot of work in trying to preserve the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. This picture was taken back in the heyday of the, quote, fight to try to preserve that particular area in Alaska. And again, the faith community came at this from a justice aspect. Many of the tribes that are in Alaska actually are affiliated with some of the mainline Protestant denominations like the Episcopal Church, the Evangelical Lutheran Church, etc. And so they were able to partner, the faith community was able to partner with those folks on the ground to really bring the voice about why it's important to these tribes to protect this piece of land and not drill